Mrs. Sivasangri. She has finished her master degree from Dessau School of Architecture, Germany. She's also worked as an architect in Gebauwerk, Berlin. She's worked with various projects ranging from research centers to libraries, international embassy to resort design, and has also attended Studio Zaha Hadid Summer School in Romania.
Welcome to UGC lecture series. In today's lecture, we are going to have a look at history of architecture, and the subject we are going to deal about is ancient river valley civilization of Egypt. Egyptian civilization, one of the oldest civilization in the world. It's known for its huge monumental structures and its pyramid. Egyptian architecture had a sense of mystery in it, which made it very interesting. And in today's lecture, we are going to look at the introduction to Egyptian architecture, various factors which influence the Egyptian architecture and tomb architecture. Every country's architecture is influenced by various features like geographical, geological, climate, and then the social and religious beliefs. And then we are going to look at tomb architecture, which deals about the evolution of pyramid from mastabas to step pyramid to the geometrical pyramid. Ancient Egyptian architecture. It is the most influential architecture and civilization around the world. It has developed diverse structures and great architectural monuments along the stretch of Nile. Nile River played a major role in the architecture of Egypt. A lot of monuments like Pyramid of Giza, Amun Temple, and Sphinx are known for Egyptian architecture. Various factors which influenced Egyptian architecture. Every country's architecture has been influenced by its geographical feature, geological features, and other climatic and other features. Location of Egypt. Egypt is located in Africa in the southern edge of Sahara. Egypt lies along the stretch of river Nile. The Nile floods its banks every season, and the Egyptians lived along the fertile valley, and they buried their deads in the desert. As you could see, the Nile played an important role as a trade route for Egypt. The Nile connected both Mediterranean Sea and the Arabian Sea. It acted as a trade route for Egypt, and it also had access to Red Sea, which helped in bringing in and bringing out materials and commodities from other countries. As you could see, the people lived in the rich delta region above and along the stretch of Nile, and you could see all the important monuments could be seen in the desert. The Pyramid of Giza, Memphis, the oldest capital of Egypt, and you could see the step pyramid of Saqqara, and below we could see the Hermopolis, and at the down we could see the temple of Amun at Karnak and the temple of Luxor. History of ancient Egypt started with when the Nile divided the land from north and south. The king Memphis united both north and south, and thus started the civilization of Egyptian architecture. So we could see the major events which happened in the Egyptian country. So Egyptian civilization, based on the major events in the history, is classified into 7 kingdoms. So it's an old kingdom, first intermediate kingdom, middle kingdom, second intermediate kingdom, new kingdom, late dynastic kingdom, and the period of Greeks and Romans. In the old kingdom was built the step pyramid of Zoser, and the pyramid of Giza were built in the first intermediate period, and again in the second intermediate period was the reign of Astiput, and the temples of Amun-Ra was built. In late dynastic period, there was a foreign conquest and decline, which leads to the declination of Egyptian civilization, and it was conquered by Persia around 525 to 405 BC. At the end of 404 to 341 BC, there was the last native Pharaoh, who was the king of Egypt, declined, and in 333 BC, Egypt was conquered by Alexander the Great, and in 333 to 30 BC, it was conquered by Greek and Roman emperors. We have talked about this 7 periods, like various periods like early dynasty, old kingdom, and first intermediate period, middle kingdom, second intermediate period, new period, and Greek and new Roman period. Influences. Geographical influence. As I said before, Nile and its delta had a major influence. Every year, Nile is a very predictable river. It is a seasonal river which overflows its bank every July to October. When the flood happens, the people who are engaged in agriculture and other activities will be involved in monumental works and other activities. Importance of Nile. So, during the floods, people were freed from farming to engage in other activities including building work. Nile was also a highway to Egypt. It connected it to various other trade routes and other commodity routes. Nile also offered protection from various invasions like foreign invasions. Geological factors. Availability of material played a major role in every country's architecture. Various materials like stone, bricks and clay and other materials are found in Egypt, but the major material which has been used in Egyptian architecture were plant materials, stone and brick materials. Wood was not available in plenty, so it was used for very smaller parts. And stone was the most important building material. The stones, like in the north of Egypt, you could see sandstone. At the middle is the limestone. At the southern region, you could see granite. All this material contributed greatly to the Egyptian architecture. These materials have been long lasting, and these are one of the reasons why the Egyptian architecture can be seen till now. The northern part of Egypt had an abundance of limestone, center had abundance of sandstone, southern part had granite. The hard and durable nature of these materials that so many monuments still exist. The plant consists of readily available material like reeds, papyrus, palm leaves and shaft. Influences of climate. Climate also played a major role in Egyptian architecture. Egypt had two climates, spring and summer. The Egyptian climate is hot and equable. Due to its hot and dry climate, there is neither fog or storm which affected the Egyptian landscape. Egyptian architecture had a great influence, has been greatly influenced by the climate. The continuous sunshine helped also conduced for the simplicity of design and also for the long lasting monuments. As sufficient light entered the buildings through doors and lintels, there was not any requirement of huge windows, which helped greatly in the monumentality of Egyptian architecture. Egyptian architecture had huge massive walls, uninterrupted massive walls due to the no requirement of windows. This uninterrupted surface helped greatly for hieroglyphic pictorial representation of religious ritual, historic incidents and daily pursuits. In the absence of rain, roof drainage was not a consideration. They had a flat roof, all thick, which is made up of thick stone slabs, sufficed to cover the buildings. And to exclude the heat, these temple roofs served for religious procession. Religious belief played a major role in the architecture of Egypt. Egyptians believed in a lot of gods. They believed in gods which are in the form of nature, for example sun, moon and other gods. So they worshipped the nature as one of the in different god forms. The Egyptians had a close connection between religion and architecture in everywhere manifest. For the priesthood was one of the most powerful element in Egyptian architecture. Priesthood was more powerful and and played a major role in Egyptian culture and religion. Their religious rites were traditional, mystical and then equable all along. As you could see, this is the social pyramid of Egypt. This is the social pyramid of Egyptian architecture. So below at the bottom is the slaves, above are the artists, dancers, soldiers, sailors and domestic servants. Above you could see as the priest and priestess, and above are the physician, engineers, merchants and well-known artisans. Above is the nobles, governors, army general and high priest who played a major role in Egyptian culture. Above you is the pharaohs or Nisu of the queen of royal family. The government also played a major role in Egyptian architecture. The government is led by pharaohs. A pharaoh is the head of the government. They had various departments. One of the departments deals with the construction of huge monuments. These huge monuments are built by slaves or peasants, paid very less or with food. With this, which explains why such huge monuments are possible in the less cost. There were thousands or 3,000 to 30,000 slaves were employed for each pyramid. Religion. Egyptians largely believed in life after death. So they believed that only the body will die and the soul will live forever. The soul is called as Ka. They believe that once the body is died, the Ka will return next day into the body. So they preserve the dead bodies in a form of in the preservation of mummification. Mummification, to ensure the availability of body, the internal organs of the body is removed, and then the outer surface has been preserved by means of covering the body with the cloth. The cloth is called mummy cloth, and it's been dipped in oil and other preservatives to preserve the mummy forever. Once the it's been covered with the cloth, it's put into sarcophagus, which is a chamber of which represent the person, and the mummy is put into the sarcophagus and preserved forever. Now we are going to have a look at the social characteristics and beliefs which influence the Egyptian architecture. Egyptian believed that the earthly dwellings are temporary. They believed life after death. These burial grounds or the permanent adobes. They paid little attention to house construction. The tomb was seen as a permanent dwelling for the afterlife. Tremendous effect was exerted in tomb construction. A mummified dead body was buried in a stone box called sarcophagus in the tomb. Architectural ideas. They believe the dead person need all the earthy goods. So once they put the body into sarcophagus, they place the sarcophagus in a room and they fill the room with all the materials the dead person has been used, and the room is filled with gold, silver and other utilities for the dead person. If anything cannot be provided, the room is painted with different colors and different hieroglyphics the person loved. The tomb also had chambers to protect their goods which they have used. For example, gold, silver will be put into a box and then will be stored here. The dead are buried in a city of dead called necropolis, which is located in the desert. Ancient Egyptians had many achievements. One of the achievement is development of a government belief system, and then art of mummification, which we already discussed. There is also a legacy of tombs and temples, which we are going to see now. And Egyptians developed a system of irrigation to improve agriculture, and the ancient Egypts developed hieroglyphics, which is one of the it's art form which represent the daily life of Egyptian. During the Old Kingdom, Pharaoh and his court lived in a Memphis. When they died, they are buried in necropolis at Saqqara. The earthly dwelling of ancient Egyptian was seen as temporary, and tomb was a permanent dwelling. Houses were built in temporary material which last for a lifetime. Majorly, the Egyptians believed in life after death. So the monuments and burial grounds have been given more importance than the adobes, daily living homes. So they concentrated more in building these monuments and huge structures than the normal dwellings. These normal dwellings have been built in using brick and other adobe systems. The tombs were most outstanding architectural element of the period. The tombs were huge, monumental, and they serve as a focus of worship of dead. A tomb evolved during the Old Kingdom from mastaba through step pyramid and from the renowned ancient pyramid. The Stephen Gardner described Egyptian architecture as a one which concentrated more in construction of monuments than in constructing daily adobe system. He said Egyptian contribution to architecture was more concerned with remembering the dead than the living. Tomb architecture, as you could see the monument, huge monument in front of you, and the number of workers which were involved in the construction of tombs. For a tomb, from 3,000 to 30,000 slaves were used in the construction of these tombs. The huge stone blocks of limestone and sandstone have been transported above through ramps, and there has been lot of theories which involved in how these huge stones have been transported above. It's still a mystery to a lot of people around. There have been a lot of theories, but there is not yet a confirmed theory how those huge tons of sandstone and limestone have been carried above. So the tomb architecture, basically, as you could see, the pre-dynastic burials were just dug shallow pits below the ground. They were due to the invasion of animals which ate the dead bodies. They started to bury it little more deeper into. They started to build it deeper. So next was the shallow pit which had a sarcophagus. Sarcophagus contained the body of mummified body of the person. So this was the royal tomb of first dynasty. And next was the early stone mastaba. This mastaba was built on brick walls, slanting brick walls and a flat roof. As you could see, the mastaba, this is the chamber where the dead person body is stored, and above is added two rooms, one for the priest and other for storage of a statue of the person. All this mastaba had a false door or a niche in them. Early step tomb, as you could see, later once they started building the stone mastaba, they started to build steps which lead to the tomb chamber, and above they had this room which stored the statue of a person. Next was royal pyramid tombs which had a little doorway and a small temple for offering for the dead, and also a small room. And next you could see is the step pyramid which evolved by stacking one mastaba over another. So the pyramid has a temple at the beginning and the doorway, and below is a burial chamber. And next evolved is a geometrical pyramid which has been evolved in 4th dynasty. The angle of this pyramid is 52 degrees. Earlier step pyramid had an angle of 51.60 degrees, and the final perfect geometrical pyramid arrived at the angle of 52 degrees. A pyramid is basically at a square base, 4 flat surfaces which pointing towards a cordial point. Next we are going to see one by one from the mastaba, next step pyramid, and in our next lecture we will be seeing the evolution of pyramid. Early kingdom tombs, mastaba. Early Egyptian tombs have been just shallow pits in which they bury the dead bodies. After some times, due to the disturbance through animals which ate the dead bodies, they started to build a little more shallow, in-depth burial pits. Slowly these burial pits have been changed into a more convenient system, which is called mastaba. This is the picture of mastaba. As you could see, it had a shallow shaft which went below, and this you could see as the underground burial chambers. It had a blockage at the end of 2 blockages. The dead body is placed here. Once the dead body is placed, the shallow shaft is blocked, and then it has 2 rooms, a chapel which had an offering table and a serdab with the statue of Ka. Usually these mastabas had a false door to confuse the Ka. And next was the early kingdom tombs of mastaba. So mastabas is mainly derived from podiums above the ground. They are basically adobe podiums which rise above the ground. The height of each podium is 30 meters and the shallow depth which goes around 30 meters below the ground. Early mastaba tombs. This is the underground burial chamber. In this chamber is the sarcophagus is above it, there is a serdab. Serdab is basically a room where the statue of Ka is present. It's believed that the Ka will come into the serdab every night. A burial chamber is packed with all the necessary items which the dead person needed, and then it is blocked once the sarcophagus is kept inside. Early kingdom tombs, they believed the Ka will return to the serdab every night, so they painted the serdab with beautiful paintings and they colored it in different colors, so it will attract the Ka inside the room. The chapel is where the Ka will be living forever. So, and there was an offering table in which the dead person relatives can keep the offerings for the dead person. Now let us look at the summary of whatever we have seen in today's lecture. Today we started with Egyptian architecture, the evolution of Egyptian architecture, various factors which influenced the Egyptian architecture. Next we move on to the evolution of Egyptian pyramid from mastaba to step pyramid to pyramid. Till now we looked at the mastaba's construction techniques. In next class we will have a look at step pyramid and geometrical pyramid. Next we look at the questions. What are the various factors which affected the which influenced the Egyptian architecture, and then explain the evolution of pyramid with sketches. With this we come to the conclusion of today's lecture. Thank you.